Okay, going live in 3, 2, 1. You are live.
Hi, welcome to the Brentwood community on behalf of the Brentwood School District Board of Education, administrators, Mr. Lochner, Dr. Vincent Leone, and Ms. O'Connor. Welcome to our June 3rd, 2021 workshop. If I could just ask everybody to please stand. Well, actually, let me have a motion to convene the workshop at 5:07 p.m.
Motion.
Motion made by Trustee Burgos. Could I have a second, please?
Second.
Second by Trustee Moore. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? So if I could have everybody please stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, Republic,
Which stands one nation,
under
under
God,
God, indivisible,
and justice
for all.
Justice for all.
So to the Brentwood community, I have to say that we have to reveal a secret that we were holding. This isn't really a workshop. This is a birthday celebration for a member on our screen. And that member is the one who could not hold her laughter while I said this, because it's Miss O'Connor. Miss O'Connor, is today your birthday?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
We put all of this together. This isn't really a workshop. This is just us celebrating you for all the wonderful things that you've done for our community throughout the years. And let me just say, we could see you blushing, even if this is through Zoom. You know, we could still see that, right?
I could turn my camera off though.
Mr. Lochner, did we get her or what? I mean,
You did. I think yeah, she was surprised about that.
Good. So there's actually going to be a mariachi band outside of your office coming to you pretty quickly with a cake. With a cake. This is Eileen, wasn't that your idea?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So
Robert's
just
coming with the sombrero, so don't worry about it. He's gonna do a little dance for you.
as we continue, if you can just put your microphone on mute so that we don't hear the trumpets and the guitars and whatnot, that would be great. All right.
Sounds good.
All right. So listen, all right, besides that, Mr. Lochner, what are we in for tonight?
Actually, we're in for a kind of a unique evening. We have to go over how we're going to spend the federal funds. We've mentioned it a number of times. Actually, Dr. Leone has been here with us. And I've mentioned it, Ms. O'Connor she's also mentioned it at a number of the meetings. This is now an opportunity for us to share with you some of our, what we envision and using the funds for over the next 3 and 4 years. And also Dr. Leone will mention that we'll also be soliciting some input from the community as well. So this is really kind of Dr. Leone is going to give us a presentation. It's about 11, 12 slides long. We'll open it up for questions there. But it is really an exciting time for Brentwood. We have lots of great things in front of us over the next 3 and 4 years. Actually, even beginning this year, the next few months, we're going to see some benefits of the increased state aid as well as these federal funds coming to us. So it's a real happy time for us and a busy time. There's lots of decisions that the Board of Education will be asked to make in the next, actually, you've already made some. The community has already spoken to in improving the budget, which was a benefit. And now there'll be lots of decisions as we move forward on how to spend this money adequately. And there's also requirements. Obviously, when you do get monies from the federal government, they're very specific requirements as to how you're going to spend it. And we're obviously going to, pay close attention to that and make sure that we check all of the correct boxes, as we spend the money. So with that, I think what I'll do is I'll turn it over to Miss O'Connor and then she'll bounce across the screen to Dr. Leone.
Okay, thank you. Because the federal funds are just that coming from the federal government, they share a lot of characteristics with our other grants that Dr. Leone manages. So it's really going to be in his hands how we account for these funds. And, you know, we all give input, obviously, and that's what this meeting is about also, just getting some input, and he'll talk a little bit about that in his presentation. But the way all of our filings and our rules and our regulations do follow those grants. So I will just turn it over to Dr. Leone, and we can go over that in his PowerPoint presentation.
Before you do, though, Dr. Leone, I do want to just send out a special thanks to Dr. Leone. He puts a tremendous amount of effort into this. He's done a fabulous job with the grants that have already been given to us, you know, from the government. And he's also written quite a few grants himself and has brought in a significant amount of money to the district, and we're very grateful to that. But this work, although, you know, I'm sitting here smiling and it's exciting, lots of this obviously falls on his shoulders. And, you know, for the next 3 and 4 years, he'll be extremely busy, you know, making sure that these funds are spent correctly and wisely. So Dr. Leone.
Thank you so much, Mr. Lochner. Thank you so much, Ms. O'Connor. Let us commence with the overview. Will we share a screen?
Yep, working on it. Got it?
Excellent. As Ms. O'Connor and Mr. Lochner alluded to, there is quite a bit of federal funding for us to spend in the next 3 to 4 years. So the purpose of this overview, and it really is an overview, I did the best I could to take some very complex financial information and to really make it simple and relatable for our board and for our community. So really hundreds of pages of guidance, you know, that we've reviewed from the State Education Department. Now is, you know, we have about 12 slides, you know, which do represent an overview of that funding, different ways we could spend the money, that we're allowed to spend the money, and just some preliminary ideas about the best way to spend the money here in our district. So let us begin.
Hang on one sec. There it is. With the white background, it's hard to see the controllers.
Thank you so much. So one thing I you know, don't like to do is to really read screens or read a presentation from the screen. But there is a lot of technical information, you know, in this presentation, so I'll have to do that a little bit. And the first thing we start with is, good grief, alphabet soup. Look at all these acronyms, help. But these are the names of the different funding streams that are available to our district, that are available to districts across New York State. So I just wanted to make the community aware of them from the very beginning. So the first is ARP ESSER. And what that refers to is the American Rescue Plan Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund. Another fund is referred to as CRRSA. That's the Coronavirus Response and Relief Supplemental Appropriations Fund. ESSER, and you see a reference to ESSER 2 and Gear 2. That's because there was an initial allocation of ESSER monies, and I'll talk about that a little later in the presentation. Stands for Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund, and GEAR, which is the Governor's Emergency Education Relief Fund. So the different funding streams that are available to our district to help combat the negative impact of the coronavirus pandemic. So the first one of those, the ARP ESSA Fund, is derivative of the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021, Public Law 117-2, which was enacted March 11, 2021. And that fund provides a total of nearly $122 billion to states and school districts. And here's the key: to help safely reopen and sustain the safe operation of schools, and to address the negative impact of the coronavirus pandemic on the nation's students. So the way that money is distributed to districts from the state is using the same formula that the state uses to distribute Title I funds. And that's what Ms. O'Connor was referring to at the beginning of our discussion. So these funds are very much like the title funds that flow through our office. And those funds are determined based on the number and percentages of economically disadvantaged students in our district. Brentwood is the largest suburban school district in the state with high concentrations of economically disadvantaged students. Our share of those ARP ESSER funds is significant. So as you can see on this screen, Brentwood's share of that $1.22 billion is $40,879,935. So it really is a significant amount of money that we can leverage to continuously improve and refine the district, provide services to our students who really need it most. That money includes a mandatory 20% set aside or reserve, if you will, to address learning loss through evidence-based interventions and to ensure that those interventions address students' social, emotional, and academic needs, and also take into consideration the disproportionate impact of COVID-19 on underrepresented subgroups. So economically disadvantaged children, English language learners, students with disabilities, students in foster care, migrant students, students that we have in our district. So these are the allowable expenses. So the different ways the district is allowed to spend those monies, that over $40 million. And I'll just go through them quickly. If anyone has any questions, you of course can stop me at any time. So the first is any activity that's authorized by the Elementary and Secondary Education Act of 1965. And essentially that's Title I. So any activity that's designed to support students who are failing or at risk of failing to meet the state's challenging academic standards, anything we could do to support those students is allowable. Coordinating preparedness and response efforts. Training and professional development on sanitizing and minimizing the spread of infectious diseases. Purchasing supplies to sanitize and clean the district's facilities. Repairing and improving school facilities to reduce the risk of virus transmission and exposure. Improving indoor air quality. Addressing the needs of children from low-income families, children with disabilities, English learners, racial and ethnic minorities, students experiencing homelessness, and foster care. Planning for or implementing activities during long-term closures, including providing meals to eligible students and providing technology for online learning. Purchasing educational technology, providing mental health services and supports, including through the implementation of evidence-based full-service community schools and or the hiring of counselors. Planning and implementing activities related to summer learning and supplemental after-school programs and other activities that are necessary to maintain operation of and continuity of services, including continuing to employ existing or hiring new district and school staff. The CRRSA, on December 27, 2020, the President signed into law the Coronavirus Response and Relief Supplemental Appropriations Act. The CRRSA provides $81.88 billion nationwide in a second stabilization fund to prevent, prepare for, and respond to the coronavirus, of which $54.3 billion is in a second ESSER fund and $4.05 billion is for a second GEAR fund. For our district, our share of those CRSSA funds is $18,346,095. That includes $17.6 million in ESSER funds and $714,000 in Gear 2 funds. Allowable expenses for CRSSA, the same allowable expenses, that was allowable for, the previous funding. The exception is there is no reservations that are required. And we still can hire new staff to avoid layoffs using those funds as well. So the first ESSER fund, so you notice that there was referred to as ESSER 2 and Gear 2. There was a first allocation of these funds at the beginning of the 2021 school year. So you see on the screen the different allocations the district had available to us through those funds, $4.6 million. And using those funds, the vast majority of those funds were used to fund educational technology for students. So the significant amount of work that Candace has done in her department, bringing the district to a 1-to-1 ratio for students and devices. So a significant portion of that money was used to ensure that all of our students had the technology that they needed to access their education. And then also money was spent on staff salaries, assistant principals in the district as well. So some preliminary ideas, and these are just preliminary ideas because as Mr. Loshner suggested, it is important now to get real stakeholder input and really inform the community on the different ways we can spend the money and really hear from various stakeholders from the district. So the community, of course, most important, our teaching staff, our students. So to survey folks to get a real sense of what their priorities are for this money, given an understanding of how we can spend the money. But initially, some initial thoughts, just on that previous slide, and it's really three key buckets to ensure, and at the end of the day, this is to ensure continuous academic, social, and emotional growth for our children. So backwards design. It is infrastructure, ensuring social and emotional health and academic support. So from an infrastructure perspective, improving ventilation systems in the district, purchasing more devices for students, such as our students who are going to be entering kindergarten who have not yet received devices, and providing devices for teachers so teachers can perform their duties to the best of their ability. Improving cybersecurity in the district with the increased use of technology. Improving cybersecurity would be a real key. Understanding the impact that this pandemic has had on the social, emotional health of our students. Hiring additional social workers, guidance counselors, and nurses, something that we are allowed to do from these funds, we feel like would be really beneficial to our district. And then, of course, academic support. So the extended school day activities, before school, after school, summer school, making sure that our children are engaged in our school district to the greatest extent possible. We feel like it's going to be very important to ensure their success. And then, of course, providing professional development to our staff in many, many different areas, including academics, student social emotional support, making folks more culturally aware. So those sorts of activities. And again, these are preliminary ideas, and our next steps will be to really solicit that meaningful stakeholder input. So we're going to do that through issuing a series of surveys that our stakeholders will be able to provide us real feedback and input on those priorities. And ultimately, we will develop a plan which communicates the district's plan to reopen the schools in a safe manner and in a way that's going to leverage funds to really improve outcomes for children.
Dr. Leone, can I interrupt for a second?
Yes.
When you say we're going to survey the community, in what manner are we going to do that? Are we going to be doing that the same way we have been doing throughout the pandemic? Because I think we need to engage them in a different manner for this.
Sure. So we've had some preliminary discussions, and Rich, you could.
Right. Yeah, we have. It's, you know, that is one of the methods. I know you're referring to Parent Square, Eileen.
Yes,
That has, you know, been successful in some ways. Obviously, the elementary division, that's really a very powerful tool. It obviously kind of dips down as you move into the secondary level. So we're actually thinking about multiple ways. I mean, a lot depends on whether and when we're in person. Obviously, when we're in person, we are certainly going to be
Right.
soon enough. And at that point, we'll engage the community in some type of, you know, outreach to the community in person. But the surveys will be a real starting point for us.
Mhm. I mean, I'm still a proponent of snail mail. You seem to get more of a response. Look at 2 years ago with the election, how much of a response we received then just by simply sending out mail. And I know it was costly to the district, but I think if we really want the input and truly value the community's input, we need to really think about you know, and strategize different ways of getting them involved in the process. You know, there's 20,000 students to have a quarter, not even a quarter, an eighth of a response is not really engaging the community.
No, understood. Yeah, and you know, I just want you to know most surveys are far more than the 1/8. But I hear what you're saying.
Thank you.
Mr. Loshner, also, what about those people in the community that might not have children attending school, but they're still stakeholders?
Correct.
Now, you have to understand, like, you know, Dr. Leone, you know, outlined, there are actually kind of specific areas that we really have to focus on. So there'll be, you know, community input a great deal as we move forward, but there's also some academic programs that, you know, that really are very specific. And also, actually, I should even say the infrastructure. There's some, you know, there's some infrastructure that there will be some input, but there's not really a great deal of changing. So we are looking at like HVAC systems. We are looking at, you know, other areas that need to be improved in order to improve the air quality within classrooms and school buildings. So a lot of that, you know, doesn't really require a lot of community input. We just will really communicate with the community what exactly we're using those funds for.
I just think that it's our fiduciary responsibility and to also be transparent as a board and administrative body that we put a dollar amount to what we're going to spend. Because what I don't want is to have 3 years go by and the money's coming in and we're spending it and the community accuses us of stuffing our pockets. It's happened. We've seen it happen. And it'll keep us in line. You know, it's a checks and balances for the community and for the district.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, you know, we will be transparent through the whole process. I mean, I can assure you that we're really not, you know, what's happened in the past, I can't really, you know, respond to, but we're really required to keep very careful records on how we're spending the money, what our intentions are. And you're right, in terms of price tags, we will be very careful, and you have to be when you're reporting this and ultimately audited. You actually have to be able to,
Right.
you know, say exactly how much you spent, where you spent it, what you spent it on, and the time frame that you spent it.
But I want it to be accessible on our site. If a
Right.
parent's wondering, okay, they have $40 million. Where did that $40 million go? How did they allocate those funds? I wanted to like say, you know, 20,000 went to pool repairs, and I want it to be very specific so that there is never a question of what this board did with that money. So that
Dr.
there's,
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry, Paula.
Go ahead.
So if I can just jump in, Felix, for a minute. What you're saying is exactly what I envision, and it's almost like what I thought that we should do is kind of used our Facebook platform to create that
Yes.
document. It's almost like a scorecard in terms of, what we did, how much it
Right.
cost, and what the timeline was. So to the
Yep.
point that you're making, this was part of the preliminary work that I think that Rich, Stacy, and I spoke about in the beginning, in that some of these things that we're talking about are also aidable. And what we're not going to do is we're not going to wait for all these projects to be finished all at once. So as
Right.
soon as they're done, we're going to sign off on them, and then we're going to submit them so that we can get the money back on it. So absolutely, I hear you, and we could even, at some point further, I'm sure Mr. Lotion, Mr. O'Connor will give us, that preliminary information, and we just have to, I guess, toss it over to the public relations team to see how it is that we could present this in that format that we're
Right.
talking about right now.
I just wanna-
Absolutely, I agree with you
I
100%.
just want us to be as transparent as we can be, because, this is a blessing that we've received, and, we don't, we don't want, none of us want to be in the position of being accused of, malfeasance. So, I just want to be sure that, we're open as much as we can with the community and put it out there and say, here, this is what we're doing. This is how we did it.
Yep.
And
No, I think it's a great idea, and we will, I assure you, and actually, Dr. Leone, that's part of his responsibilities, is really keeping track of the money, how it's spent, and like I said, when it's spent and where it's spent, what it's spent on. And, at a moment's notice, I'm sure we will have that available, but I love the idea of possibly publishing that, not possibly, publishing that in a community site, obviously on our website. We can certainly post things on Facebook to encourage people to look at our website so they can see exactly where all of the funds are being spent and how they're being spent. I think it's all, terrific, advice and ideas.
And
But
I
even for
think,
the-
I'm sorry. So I think that also, gives the community something to be proud about. I mean, so here we are, we're listing these things, and then we're checking them off, and that's, that is incredible amount of empowerment to the residents and the community that we're serving. So I have a visual in my mind. I mean, thank you for bringing it up. It's absolutely, I think it's just a wonderful, wonderful way to roll this out,
And I know we're only in the beginning stages. This is our first time receiving the funds, but we'd have an even better opportunity a year or two to put it inside of the bulletin that goes out to the community for the budget.
Well, I should point out something. We actually are showing the community right now with total transparency on how we spent the 4.6 million last year, because we did get some of this money.
Right.
I think one of the slides Vincent had, we did receive money for the 2020-2021 school year. And you saw it was over $3.3 million that we spent on devices. That obviously can be broken down even further. For this presentation, obviously, we focus mainly on student devices, but there are other devices in there as well. So, I mean, we've already started the transparency, and you can see that, Vincent had that number, out to the dollars.
I have a question for Dr. Leone. Isn't it mandatory when we receive any funds from the federal government that you have to list everything, that all of the money and how it's spent? Isn't that pretty detailed?
Yes, Ms. Moore, that's absolutely correct. So the requirement to solicit stakeholder input from the community or staff, it is a requirement that we do so. We have to describe,
Right.
that process. So I think Ms. Felix's suggestion that we be more expansive, about how we're soliciting input is important. We have to describe the plan to solicit that input. We have to communicate precisely the money we're spending by way of a budget. And the other thing that we have to do is we have to demonstrate the impact of our work and the impact, that the funds we've allocated that it's had, the impact that it's had on system practices and on children. And we do that routinely. So as everyone was talking about being transparent about how we're going to spend the funds, Ms. Felix said in year 2, we could consider being more expansive. Well, we collect so much information in our office on the positive impact that the title funding has with our kids, we should be sharing that with our community.
Yes.
So I absolutely submit, that as we spend this money, we're very transparent with the community. And well, first of all, they're going to know we're going to, in a meaningful and authentic way, use that input to inform ultimately what we do. And then being transparent with the community with the impact that that money has had on kids. We will demonstrate without question improvements in student attendance and improvements in so many different areas, academics, student social emotional outcomes. I submit that we should be really thoughtful about communicating the impact that this money is going to have on our district. It will. We should communicate it.
Yeah, I just want it to be a community-based, feed, because yes, we have the school community that we're giving that information to, but as we know, we did not have any tax increase this year, but that might not be the case next year. So there's going to be questions. And as long as we're always consistent in our answers and provide that proof and transparency, then that creates the trust between the community and the school district. And, I think we've done a good job of that, but I want to continue that. I just want to make sure nothing slips through the cracks and that, we are dotting our I's and crossing our T's at every opportunity that we have.
Just one quick note on the aidability of the funds,
Right.
because we're purchasing things from federal funds, whether it's through BOCES or through like construction projects, we won't be eligible for building aid. We won't be eligible for BOCES aid. That would be considered double dipping. So just to be clear on that, none of this will be aidable on top of, the federal funds we're already getting.
But I think that's the point. Like we do speak about it, like what's aidable, what's not aidable, but how does that translate to the community? How do they understand what exactly that means? Because there's more than 60,000 families in Brentwood who pay taxes into the school district, but like Paula said, may not necessarily have children in the district. So they may be far removed. They maybe had kids in the district 20, 30, 40 years ago. So they don't remember what aidable, non-aidable means. So maybe we need to put definitions out there of what that means as well.
Yeah, it's a good suggestion. We could certainly write something up, to share with the community. Absolutely.
I mean, I know you do a terrific job every year when you do the budget, Stacy. So I'm not trying to give you, a hard time. I just want to make sure that, the community is certain of what we're doing and they know what we're doing. So there's no question, so that someone's not getting a call, oh, you took this money and what,
Well,
I just want to
When
prevent
you say community, are you talking about just those that have children in school?
no,
Or
all
the
of it,
entire community?
the
Because
entire community.
everyone should get that information.
Yes, the
My
entire
neighbor
community.
next door needs to know how the money's being spent. They're taxpayers also.
Yeah, that's why I mentioned
Yeah.
those that have children that have been far removed from the process,
Right.
20, 30 years, but are still residents paying into the district.
Exactly.
So they need to know what that means. Maybe they don't remember what aidable and non-aidable is.
right. No, I think that's a great point, Eileen. And, there will be projects that we will be undertaking next year that you guys voted on the budget. Obviously, the community voted on the budget as well. Some projects that are coming from the general fund, for example, they will be aidable, and we will, I think it's a great idea. I mean, it is reported that way, but we will continue to be even more transparent to make sure people can distinguish between the two. So I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, and like the restricted funds versus non-restricted funds, like, some people don't understand what that means. So maybe if we have a little glossary while we're doing all this other reporting, it would be helpful so that they can truly understand what it is that's happening in the district.
Sure.
And I'll get off my soapbox.
I have a question.
I was gonna say, it's been so many years since we've got money like this. I can't remember in my years. So I think the community needs to know how much money, how much money we're getting, how it's being spent, and what all of this means, because it's easy when you don't have a lot of money to spend.
Yep.
So now we've got quite a bit. So let's get it out there to the community and let them know.
Right.
And I say, not just the school community, but the entire community. We all pay taxes.
Now, it is important to note that, you know, these meetings are part of the process. So, I mean, we all have to do a good job in getting the word out. In other words, this is a workshop to discuss the use of federal funds. So, I mean, this is considered really informative to the community and not just to parents of students in the community. It's to all community members. And, you know, as we've said before, we've had some prior meetings and all of those budget workshops. You know, it's important that people know that this is what we're discussing. We're discussing the spending of the money, taxpayer money, federal money, you know, state money. So this is actually part of the process right here. And I would encourage people who are, obviously, people who are listening right now, they're listening, but, you know, this will be posted to our website, YouTube. They can go in and listen, you know, to this. I mean, you know, this is now Vincent, I think he gave one in a different session, but he's given a couple of PowerPoints that are very powerful and that are very informative. This
Maybe,
is one of them.
maybe we consider other avenues of getting that information out.
Right.
You know, noticias, penny saver, just promoting these meetings in front of the administrative building, putting that information, make sure it's out, the robocalls. I mean, in a way, we almost have to be relentless with it.
So can I ask a question about robocalls? Now that you mentioned it, Eileen, did we have a messenger call for this meeting explaining what the meeting was going to be about?
I did not send out a robocall, Julie, no.
There was a public agenda of the public on Facebook that says a workshop.
Yeah.
I didn't get a robocall.
Yeah, it's been posted.
I think we're leaving out, even when there is a messenger call, there's a lot of people in our community, and Eileen mentioned, families that don't have children in the district anymore. A lot of those families don't get the messenger calls. I know that I was able to put my parents on the list for getting calls quite some time ago. It came up at a board meeting, and Mr. Adayeye was the public relations person at the time, and he arranged for people who wanted to be included on that list to be included, but that has not happened since. So I know that there are many people who never go on Facebook, never go on our website, never get a robocall, and their chances of being informed are very, very minimal. And I agree that I think we have to make a better effort to be able to reach out to everyone.
Julia, there were people that did not want to get the robocalls.
I know, but there are
people,
right, but we can't assume that they don't want to. I really would like to start an effort to register as many people as possible to get those calls, and I think that's the first step in the right direction and getting everybody in the community informed. Because how can we expect them to come to meetings if they don't know that meetings are happening? We have the meetings on the calendar, but if you don't have a child in school and you don't go on our website, you really don't know when those meetings are. So I think we can do a better job in really informing our community about meetings. And I agree, with Eileen's points of just being a little more, explaining a little more frequently. I'm not going to say better because I think we do explain, but I think we do need to explain more frequently. And it takes, usually 2 or 3 times at least for people to really understand things sometimes when we're talking especially about budgetary terms and things that are not common knowledge. So I think the more we're able to explain some of these terms and what they mean and how the budgeting process works, the better it will be for all of us in the long run. And I think, that's what the community deserves, that they should get a more thorough explanation, or at least more frequently, to be able to understand what the process is. So can we, we don't have a public relations director anymore, but how can we get people enrolled? Can we start some kind of a campaign, send a letter, something to make sure that people that want to receive the messenger calls receive them? And can we set up maybe a workshop that is not necessarily specific to any particular budget year, but just to explain, again, all of the terms, like Eileen said, and, you know, what the differences are between the different funds, the different locations, and just a general basic, you know, budget 101 kind of a meeting.
I can answer a couple of those things, Julie. The community phone number, I do, when I send out a robocall, I collect, you know, in our pull down menus, we do have community members who have signed up. So I do collect that every single time. Now I will, though, no,
I'm sorry, Rich, but how do members sign up?
That's just
How
what I
do
was going to
community-
say. I'm going to talk to, obviously, Miss Hoey, who has lists, you know, far beyond the school district in terms of voters. So maybe there is a way we can put our heads together to send out a mailing, and they can call such and such a number or respond in such and such a way, and we will get their numbers into the community phone bank, if you will. And actually, I think Candace Chang has done that for other community members who have called, if I'm not mistaken. I think she just got somebody signed up the other day, from what I understand. So I think that's a great, you know, a great suggestion. I can't right now say exactly how we'll do it, but we will put a campaign together to try to get some of those phone numbers.
You know, Rich, I like that idea because when we first got on the board, and Kathy could probably attest to that, we had so many people complaining about getting the robocalls because they said, I don't have kids in school, I take my number off, if you will recall. And
Yes,
I know
we do get that.
exactly. And I mean, people were actually angry about getting the robocalls.
So I think if we send out a letter that we give people the option to sign up or not.
That's what I'm saying. So that's what we need to do. It's almost as if we have to start all over again. That's the way it appears, because I can have people, I remember having people coming to me, tell them to stop calling my house.
Right.
And so we did what they asked them to do. Now, you know, we want to get everybody back on. So I think the way to do it is to start the process again and have those who don't want it, just, you know, give them an option. No, I don't want the call, or yes, I do.
That's what I was going to say, Paula. If we can give people the option, maybe Candace can help, you know, understand or just kind of set that up for us so that people can opt out. Because truthfully, with the Parent Square, you know, parents who have children in school do stay pretty much informed. If they're signed on to Parent Square, they get a lot of messages, send out messages, principals send out messages. So they may not want or need the robocalls, but there are others, like I said, who never get them and would really goes a long way towards engaging community members.
I have a question, Dr.
Thank
Leone.
you, Rich, for looking into that.
How are you? My question is in regards to the federal funding. Now, this is federal funding. Does that require you to hire a diverse staffing, or, you know, hire community organizations, or, you know, the businesses, minority businesses that you may have to use with the money that's allocated?
Please forgive me. We're not required to spend the money in any one given way. You know, there were the various allowable expenses, you know, that I communicated. One of those allowable expenses is hiring staff. And, you know, any hiring of additional staff will be subject, you know, to our Brentwood board policy. And I just saw an update to the hiring policy that, you know, came on my desk today. You know, so active efforts to recruit, retain, hire a diverse workforce. So those board policies are applicable for any staff that we would hire, you know, through these programs. If we're going to hire a vendor to provide services, you know, to our students, whether it's to provide professional development, There may be those minority and women-owned business requirements, when it comes to, individual procurements and contracts. So that would vary depending upon the type of service we would contract for and the different types of vendors that we would contract for. So in essence and in sum, we're not required to spend the money in any one given way. But once the community, all our stakeholders decide the best way to spend the money, whether it's, if we're going to hire people, that'll be subject, and we will follow our board policy. And an important part of that policy is absolutely actively looking to recruit, retain, and hire a diverse workforce. And we will follow all state education department guidelines when it comes to vendor procurement, including MWBE if it's applicable.
We passed a resolution not too long ago that we committed to hiring minority and women-run businesses. So I think that is now a policy of our district.
Yes, it is.
We are
Correct,
going
yep.
to look to.
No, the
It's
reason
part
I
of our
asked,
purchasing policy that
Yeah,
we
the
will
reason-
look to procure services for MWBE enterprises.
exactly. The reason I asked is because I've dealt with grants and things like that, so they do require, certain things. Thank you.
Thank you.
So can I ask a question as far as timeline? So this hearing, we're not voting on any of these expenses. We're not voting until the end of the month. I don't know if that will be at our business meeting or if we're holding a special meeting just for these expenses. I guess that's one question. Are we going to vote on this at our June 17th meeting, or will we hold a different meeting later on in the month? And then does this then give the community time to have input during this time period as to how they feel about how we're spending the money? So those are two different questions.
Yes, I'm gonna have to ask Stacy about this. In terms of resolutions on the agenda, I don't know whether you're going to have resolutions on the agenda to spend this money as we move forward. That's not really something that you'd have to do with these federal funds, but the communication piece is certainly something that I think we are committed to doing as we, move through this. But Stace, in terms of an agenda item,
Yeah, like you said, I'm not aware of a requirement to
Right.
have this approved. What we have to do, though, is once we establish the plan, is place that on our agenda, on our website. For 30 days, and then, solicit any kind of feedback, from the community or any of our stakeholders within the district. So it'll be
Do we
posted
have
to the
30 days,
website.
Stacy? I'm sorry, I thought our deadline was July 1st to have the plan in place.
To have the plan
that right?
posted.
Oh, posted, but not
Posted,
really
yeah.
approved or?
Yep.
Okay.
And then we
Stacy,
have 2 to 3 years, up to 2 to 3 years to spend the funds. There are a certain amount of funds you have to spend, I think, and Vincent maybe could help me, between
first year.
12.5% to 62.5% in any one year. You can't go under that, you can't go over that. So there are different
Now,
amounts.
once we make a plan, are we able to change it as we go along?
Yes.
Okay, and what are the requirements for that? Are there any stipulations as to how we go about doing that, or do we just say, okay, now we need more money in this area, we'll take from this other area?
well, Julie, I'll let Vincent speak about this, but there are amendments to grants that are made quite frequently. As a matter of fact, I think we talk about it on a weekly basis. Once we, something comes up, there has to be an amendment submitted to SED, and I would imagine very similar. It would be very similar for these funds as well. What do you think, Vince?
That's absolutely correct. So there will be a budget that's developed. That budget will be submitted, ultimately approved by the state education department. We can change anything, and that would be done through the amendment process.
All right. Stacy, can you send us a copy of the presentation that we just saw
Sure.
to the board members?
Yep.
Thank you. And I'm sorry, I had to step away for a small part of it. Were there detailed, the parts that I saw just had general areas where the money would be spent? Were there details as to number of staff in each area, like social workers, psychologists? Okay. Will we be getting a detailed report about how the money is going to be spent?
That's the intention, Julie, is to give you guys and the community a detailed report. Absolutely.
Okay, and when will that happen?
Well, I mean, that's what we're in the process of developing that. You know, as you know, there's so much that's been happening just in the last, I mean, my God, it's actually less than 2 months really since all of this has come to be. So we were developing just our regular budget that we passed obviously last month, and now we're moving forward with this. We had a meeting today. We've had, multiple meetings. Vincent's been working on this for quite some time. You will get some details. Like I said, we'll have to send something out to the community as well. We will keep the community apprised as to what we're doing. Don't forget to, as I said, we passed our regular budget, and there's lots of things in there that actually require our attention too, and we're putting our efforts into that as well. So it's kind of a lot of balls in the air right now.
Rich, I have a question. On one of this part of the presentation, it said we could hire nurses and other staff. Now, what happens when that money runs out? That federal money runs out.
Well, I mean, that's again, you have to make arrangements that this would continue. We certainly don't want to hire staff in critical areas and then unfortunately, let them go. But these are decisions that we'd have to make in the future. What they really are referring to is, again, the social and emotional learning and the learning loss of students and being aware of that as a school district. And they're asking us to put our efforts into, let's say, for example, next year, because that's our concern. We talk about it quite a bit. When the kids return to us full time in September, will we have the staff in place to really welcome them back and recognize that many of our students might be suffering kind of from a PTSD, if you will, from the pandemic. So really, we're concerned about that. And you've heard us mention this many times. We're going to put social workers in our buildings. That is a priority. We're also looking at not just social workers. There's also programs out there that we want to explore and potentially bring in that will help students with some of their struggles that they may have as they return to us. And this summer is a big time for us. You've heard me say that for many, many months now. We'll have literally thousands of kids involved in so many activities this summer that we're also going to have support staff on site. We'll have social worker, guidance counselor, psychologists this summer, because many of those kids will be their first experience in a school. If they might have been remote students, but now they're coming to us in July and August, and we'll be ready for them as well. And even hybrid students, anybody who's struggling, we recognize this summer we're going to have to put some of these support staff there, and we're ready to do that. So you're right, we are going to bring in some staff members that we're going to have to evaluate as we move forward into year 3 and 4 and 5, obviously when the federal money expires.
And that's my concern. I don't want to hire people and then have to let them go. It's not a good feeling if you have to do it. We don't know what's going to happen. I know we need to hire these people now, but I would like to think that we could retain them.
Mm-hmm.
So can we work on a plan to make that a priority? I think it's within our hands to be able to do that. I know that right now we do have, I don't know the exact number, but we approved quite a few retirements already for next year. And I think it's in the ballpark of like 34, 35, something like that. And we probably will be getting more. And we all know that as we hire people to replace those retirements, it'll be at a lower rate. So that will free up, quite a bit of money that we could put into some of these positions that we hire, should we need to. So kind of think ahead as to how we can possibly cover some of the staff that we hire maybe on a temporary basis, and we might want to consider making them more permanent, that we can look for pathways to do that.
Right. And you know what? That's an excellent observation, Julie, that we do realize that there'll be many, many retirements over the next few years, not just here in Brentwood, but across the island. we do expect that there will be quite a few. So even if we bring in some staff members now, as you mentioned, they may be at a lower rate as the more people retire. So it should make it easier to assimilate them into the staff and keep them. It is certainly our goal is anybody that we hire, we retain. We certainly don't want to put an end point and say, in 3 years you're gone. That's certainly not what we're about here in Brentwood. And what you're mentioning, Julie, is absolutely right. That's how you can begin to absorb some of these positions. As some are retiring, you realize that you're bringing in people, younger people or newer people, I should say, that are at, far less of a cost.
Yeah, I think we as board members though need to make a commitment to that we are going to commit to doing everything we can to retain these staff members that we bring on to meet the social emotional needs of our children. And I can speak, I always speak about social workers because that's what I did within the district. And I remember a time when we had 21 social workers working in the district. And I think we're probably at about 10 or 11, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere in that ballpark now. So we have still a long way to go to even get back to those, pre-2008 numbers.
Now, Julie,
so
I didn't hear the number that you said that you had.
We had 21 from what I remember, because we had 7 in EIP alone, which is where I work, the early intervention program. And if I'm not mistaken, there were about 14 to cover the other buildings in the district. So that was at our high point that I remember. And then, once we started cutting, I know when I retired, we were down to 5. And that was in 2015. So I know we've, hired quite a few. And please, I correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we're somewhere between 10 and 12 right now. As far as social work.
We had a meeting today, and Miss Young, the Director of Special Services, actually brought up that number. We have 12 social workers on staff now. We do plan on increasing that. You guys will be voting for additional social workers on the next few agendas. We also have brought in more psychologists, as you know, and we're also looking to add guidance counselors. I think you've seen over the years, the last couple of years, we give a chart of, assignments, a social, like we'll take all of the elementary schools and we'll put down a guidance counselor, social worker, and a psychologist. And our goal, the board's goal a few years back, was to fill in all of those spots in all of those schools. And we're pretty darn close to accomplishing that.
But Rich, just this year though, we did speak about having a consistent person in those buildings, because the problem we have now is that, yes, there may be a guidance counselor one day, a social worker another day, a psychologist the other 2 days. But if that child sees the social worker, let's say on Monday, and she's or he or it's not back until the following Monday, that could be a problem. So I know that we already spoke as a board that we want to make that a priority, that we have a consistent social emotional person in the buildings at all times. So one consistent permanent person, right, that will service each building. So we could somehow commit to doing that. I think that will also be helpful.
At some point, I would like to revisit this discussion about the deans at the high school. Maybe not today, but we've covered a lot today. And I know it's your birthday, Stacy. We would like to get you home early so you can have some kind of celebration.
Okay, so Eileen, I agree. I know we all want to go, and Stacy, I certainly don't want to hold you from celebrating your birthday. But when will we have that discussion? Because, those decisions get made now for next year. So we need to sort of again, commit to picking a time to actually speak about it.
We could dedicate time during exec session before the next meeting. We could, ask Rich to put it on the agenda and give it some, some time to,
And then,
I'm anxious to speak about these things. I mean, anytime you guys want to meet, we do have next week. We don't have a public meeting, but anytime you want to have an exec session, I'm all for it. The board has committed to filling lots of positions. Obviously, I've passed that on to the cabinet, and they have onto the building principals. So we are moving in that direction. what you're referring to, Eileen, in terms of the deans, and particularly at the high school, I think you're right. We need to have that discussion and, finalize those plans as well. To your point, Julie, we are really moving forward with adding additional staff members, social workers, psychologists, guidance counselors. One of the things that Wayne Abenis, who's terrific, is as you know, the coordinator of guidance, K through 12. He's, written to me almost on a daily basis, asking for additional guidance counselors. North Middle School, the board should hear this, so should the community. But, some of our middle schools are growing tremendously, as well as the freshman center. So what we used to have 4 guidance counselors at some of the middle schools, we only have 3 in all 4 middle schools. So, Mr. Bennis is looking for additional guidance counselors there. We also used to have 4 guidance counselors at the freshman center, and we're down to 3. And I think that's a vital, staff member there as well. So I will be asking the board about, adding a guidance counselor in some of these areas. Obviously, too, we have a traveling guidance counselors at the elementary school, which has, we've had for a number of years now. But he's also looking to add a guidance counselor down there. So we are looking at the support staff in helping kids, not just academically, but also emotionally as well.
I mean, even after school programs, you can offer the social emotional needs through after school programs too. I'm sure there's a lot of programs that could come in, or, you could develop to offer, I mean, I know we talk about the social workers, but I think kids need to have, programs in regards to having fun or music, to therapy, yoga, things like that. I mean, it's been a rough year.
Absolutely. Vincent, you ready to say something about that too, or?
No, I think that's a terrific idea.
Okay.
We used to, I know when I first came to the district in, let me see, my children, 2001. They used to send home a list at the beginning of the school year asking if you wanted your children to participate in the Girl Scouts at the school, or the Knowles Farm, the horseback riding, or the gymnastics at the Heartland facility over behind the Deer Park train station. Maybe we can start getting back to that. I mean, I know my daughter did yoga in North Middle at 0 period. So, some of those things, could help, and, it was nice to see. It was nice. It was something that I never had seen growing up in the city. And I thought that was one of the perks coming to Long Island, was like, wow, I was, really giving my kids a different opportunity in the school district and really servicing the whole child.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, before and after school and Saturdays are programs that we're putting a great deal of thought and effort into. So you will see a number of those, Eileen, throughout the district.
Okay. Awesome.
I do want to say, I remember when my children went to Twin Pines, the phys ed teacher gave gymnastics after school, and the kids loved it. What I do want to ask, Rich, what do the guidance counselors really do in the middle school? I know what they do in the high school, but there's like some kind of a gap between what they do in the middle school and what they do in the high school.
I have to be honest with you, they do a tremendous amount at the middle school, at the middle level as well, Paula. I mean, obviously you're familiar with the scheduling, and they also do push-ins to classrooms, but they're also, they're a vital resource to their caseload. So they're pulling out students constantly. Students go down there. They're also part of the social emotional supports that students receive. So no, they're actually, I can't tell you how busy they are from the moment they come in to the moment they go out. A lot of times people think guidance counselors are only really scheduling students for the next year, but they're really, that's a part of it. But there's so many other components, within their job. They're also, it just escaped me for a moment here, but they are, like I said, they're involved in so many things during the day. There are giving supports to their kids, their struggling students. Again, they're working with kids who are potentially failing multiple courses. They have those students down. They're running groups. So they're doing quite a bit of interventions at the middle level to try to help shore up academically and socially and emotionally those students in the middle schools.
And they're all doing it at all of the middle schools.
I mean,
But I think their
I
presence
would
is
think,
important.
if you really want a detailed, I'm obviously, cannot give you a blow by blow as to what they do every day. I can tell you that they are an integral part of the
Oh, yeah.
UPS team.
They should be, yes,
Right.
they should be, yes.
It's
But,
funny because at the end of the day,
Kind of gravitate.
it's been a rough year, so all of our kids need social, emotional,
Right.
anywhere you could be a 100% student with 100% average, and they still need the help,
Absolutely.
and nobody reaches out to them. I'm sorry to say that, but okay.
Well, are there going to be more, emphasis put, on these guidance counselors to say, listen, the scheduling only happens at a specific time of the year, the big scheduling. But will there be more emphasis for these guidance counselors in the middle schools to really truly work with the social worker and the psychologist because of, I don't want to call it trauma, but the issues that a lot of our young people are going to have when they come back in
Right.
September?
Can I just say, I never worked in a middle school, but I did work at the freshman center, and we worked closely with the guidance counselors in meeting the social emotional needs. I think one of the biggest benefits is that the guidance counselors are usually a constant staff member in the building, right? For the most part, there were some that went from building to building and had split assignments, but most of them were permanent. So the students get to know them. They know that they're in the building. They know that they can go to their office. So they're an excellent point of contact for the students. And like I said, we worked closely together. So if there was something that they felt needed more of a social worker's intervention, they would come to us. And, the same in the reverse. If I met with a student that I felt they needed to speak with a guidance counselor, I would walk them over or send them over to their office. So I think that they do have a pretty prominent role in the building. I just want to say before we finish, to pick up on Eileen's point about the deans, I don't know how much of that conversation we had in public. I'm not sure if the community is even aware of what is being considered. So maybe this would be a good time to just bring it up and then pick up the conversation again. Because the point is that the conversation has centered around the possibility of replacing or partially replacing deans with social workers. And that's the discussion that we need to have within the next couple of weeks. So maybe it's good that the community become aware so that they can have input and that they can just be informed that that's even being considered and will be discussed.
And if I could, I just wanted to mention, to Ms. Felix's point about, different activities for children to be involved in, really prioritize their social emotional health, things we endeavor to do in the future with funds. The activities that are currently, being offered in the district, before and after school activities through title funding, really to look at and support the whole child is just amazing. I mean, I pulled up my list just really quick and I'm looking at music club, yoga club, art club, namaste club, walking club, friendship club. I mean, there were just so many different activities that children are engaged in, really to support, the whole child through title funding throughout the district. It really, really is impressive, just the various activities, that have been implemented, and of course, that we endeavor to expand upon here this year.
Is that happening in all the buildings? I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Maria.
Is that happening in all the buildings, Dr. Leone, or will it happen in all buildings that we could be able to say, okay, well, this school is providing this and this school is providing that, and we're all united in one piece? I know that we have enrichment programs after school, I know that we're going to have some summer programs to help our kindergarteners transition from, COVID related year to next year, which is going to help our students succeed. So, even Southwest has the running club, the golf program that East Middle is doing. That's, even the fashion club is helping, our kids socially, emotionally, and even providing just simple food after school is something that's helping them.
I think we need to be mindful also that not all students are able to participate. I think for some of the older students, especially if they have to take care of their younger siblings, sometimes it prohibits them from participating in some after school activities. That's why, I started to say before, we need both. We certainly love the after school activities and they play a very important role, but we need to make sure that we have some of those activities built into our day as well. So
Well, it could be part of the electives, right? Meditation could be part of the phys ed curriculum. Meditation and mindfulness can be part of a, now that we can add some electives, maybe we incorporate that into the curriculum.
Mr. Lochner, if we can,
Robert,
in order.
I just have a question about the after school. Do we provide transportation for after school activities at the elementary level, or is it only for secondary?
Right now, we just have late buses at the secondary level.
Right. That's part of the conversation that I want to bring into this, because that alone will prohibit some children from being able to participate in after school activities. If their parents are not home from work yet or not able to pick them up, at a later time, then they will not be able to. So I just want to make sure that all children have equal access to these opportunities, that it's not only offered, to those who are able to provide transportation or who don't have other childcare or other after school responsibilities.
And something else, Dr. Leone, that we used to do that I thought was great. Sorry, Robert. We used to, I can't remember if it was Title II or Title III funding we used in conjunction with the Huntington Learning Center and some of those programs where the kids would get the extra help that they needed for SAT and just for reading, math, science, social studies. And it was district paid and the money came out of that. I don't know if it was Title I, II, or III. I can't remember at this time. It was about 6-7 years ago we did this, but a lot of students did take advantage of that opportunity and it was well received by the community.
That's a great suggestion. Sounds like allowable under Title I, and I'll certainly make a note.
Thank you.
Mr. Lochner, I know there's a lot of moving parts, and in all fairness to you, I know that these are conversations that you're having currently with your cabinet, and you guys are actually crafting the plan as we speak, and I know that that this is all very, very fluid. So I want to suggest, and maybe what you can do is when you do have a chance to go back and sit with your cabinet and try to map out what this new year will look like, can you send out an email to the all board members with the suggestions that you have? I know that you've had some of these in the past, so that we have a sense of what it is, what's being proposed, so that we could look at what the pros and cons in. Maybe they can actually provide you some feedback along the way, so that we have a established this communication, because I know that the things that we're talking about are still going to be settled even over the next month and a half, 2 months. So how does that sound in terms of being able to kind of give us a sense of what it is that you're talking about, and also give you and your cabinet the ability to kind of break this down for us and tell us what you're thinking?
Yeah, no, as I said, we've already, begun meeting. I have a list here in front of me of 48 different items that we're actually looking at. Many of the items that are actually being spoken about now, obviously, many of them are already happening. We're going to try to, beef it up in some areas. So no, I think that's a great idea. You have to give us some time as we go through, even in more detail. It will be the cabinet along with Dr. Leone as we kind of go through this, stuff. Plus as I said, we have to speak to the stakeholders to see what they say as well, and for their input. But there's lots, there's lots of components to this that might not be that pretty. Remember, there are some things that are going to be happening in the background. I think I've already mentioned, potentially the
The boilers.
the boiler. Well, that's something different, but you're right. But the air circulation, the ventilation, for example, there is money in this to also take a look. The federal government recognizes that food issues have been, something for many communities, to work on. So there's actually, we can even use some of this money in the kitchens, for example. So that might be something, obviously, we'll tell the community about, but it may be, and it will obviously cost us some money, but it won't be visible necessarily to many people, but hopefully that impacts the meals that are being served in a positive way. So there's lots of stuff that kind of will happen in the background with this money that may have cost the community member. It's why we went out at a zero, because some of these things, this federal money and as well as the additional state aid, that's allowing us to do some of these things in the background that really help. Dr. Leone mentioned about the cybersecurity too, which is really a major issue for any large organization. Just take a look at what happened to the pipeline recently. When you have large organizations with big budgets, cybersecurity becomes even more essential. So that's something that, the community will inform you about, but those things are kind of happening in the background as we spend some of this federal money.
And are we planning for contingency plan when the programs become obsolete on the tablets that the students currently have? Because we're going to be on the hook to pay for the upgrades to keep the programs and the tablets functioning.
Right. Yeah, no, that's a good point, Eileen. Candace has a schedule over the summertime to update all of the laptops that are currently out to the kids. So yeah, that's something that long range, she has, not just Candace, but also the technology committee. They look into and they formulate plans. So things as they do become obsolete, we replace them. Many of the boards that I think I've mentioned to the community a number of times that we're putting out close to 400 Aquis boards will be installed over this summer, hopefully this summer. I'm sure most of them will be. And they're replacing some of the older units, which were called smart boards. So yeah, we're already making plans to replace some of the equipment that has already become outdated.
And to Maria's earlier point about the food and expanding the pantry, I mean, can we have something like the grab and go, whatever's left over from the lunch periods where the children, we can wrap it up and kind of have an area where we can just station it, and whoever needs a meal to take home with them because they may not have one at home can have that opportunity?
Well, I mean, I want to let you know that the grab and go is still running in all of our schools. It's actually, we're servicing quite a few kids and community members that during the day that we have a grab and go program, and we hand out during the day, and depending on the size of the school, it could be anywhere from 40 to 150 lunches and breakfasts at any particular school. Then we also, on Tuesdays and Fridays, we hand out over at the Sondling Senior Cafeteria, we hand out lunches that probably just closed. I think it's from 3 to 6 o'clock at night. And on any given Friday, oh, I'm sorry, today's Thursday. I apologize. It's tomorrow. We give out close to 200 meals on a Friday, for example. So yeah, we're going to keep that going. What you bring up is a great point. The schools have done a remarkable job. So has Carol Ann in charge of the food service, putting out meals in various parts of the building so students can grab them as they go to class or they exit the building. So we'll continue that. There are some regulations, however, in terms of rewrapping. I think that's kind of what
Yeah.
you were referring to there.
Yeah.
You know, which might prohibit us from doing some of that. But Stacy, how'd I
Yeah,
do?
you're right on. There's temperature controls, you know,
Right.
that we'd have to keep it at a certain temperature. So, you know,
Right.
there's definitely regulations we'd have to look at before we could commit
Right.
to anything like that.
Right, well,
No.
all I'm asking is we investigate it,
Sure.
because we have students that need it, and we have the facilities to keep things cold if we need to.
Yeah, but I think I do want you guys to know that we really have put a great deal of effort, and we're going to continue to do that because we really saw how much the community needed that. So
Yeah.
the breakfast, we put the breakfast out for kids, and we really want kids to grab them. Over at the high school, for example, they put the lunches in various parts of the building, and I've been there many, many times where kids just walk by and they grab a sandwich and a drink. And a fruit, and it's been really effective. So we're really trying to get it out as much as possible.
Oh,
And
yes,
the grab and go at the high school that Mr. Lochner mentioned, Tuesday and Friday nights, we're not just giving out for one day
Right.
on those nights. So those 2 days, the Tuesday and the Friday, covers meals for the whole week, including the weekend. So
like, are we able to do that after school, like for the after school
Right.
programs, you know, just to leave a card, hey, if you need a snack or something, pick it up. And, I mean, you know, as soon
Well,
as
many of
we're
the-
coming back.
Yeah, many of the enrichment programs, remember, we're in a pandemic year this year, but I will tell you that many of the afternoon programs that we've run in the past, that, you know, Dr. Leone will put money aside for snacks. So
Yeah,
there
I used to
are
get
clubs that do get that. If you remember, we ran the Success Center last year. The Success Center, we actually gave meals to the students when they came in later that evening. So yeah, we'll be making arrangements for that for many of the clubs and organizations.
Thank you, Rich.
Nice to get that.
Thank you, Stacy.
Going back to the conversation about the federal monies, can we schedule another meeting that's well advertised for community members to be informed about all of these ways that we're going to spend the money? Because I don't think that a lot of people were aware that tonight's meeting was going to be for this particular purpose. And, you know, if we want them to have input, I think they need to be informed. And what is the plan for community members to have input? Are they to email Kathy Hoey, or is there a different plan for them to send in their comments, questions?
Is that for me, Julie? I mean,
Or you or Dr. Leone or Stacy, I guess, like what is the plan for getting community feedback on these monies
Right.
and this?
I guess some, you know, I think we already spoke about the surveys already earlier, but I guess a lot depends on, you know, how we're going to conduct the meetings, you know, later on in June and potentially July and August. I think that will impact how we do it. Obviously, if we do it just like this, we're doing it virtually, then we would ask, I guess Kathy would be the receiver of questions before and during a meeting.
Right. Even if we're in person, though, we need to improve the way that we communicate what the meetings are about to the community so that they know that, you know, this meeting is going to be for this purpose. I mean, even I, as a board member, sent an email earlier today just to know what the agenda was for today because we didn't have one. So I think we need to really just let people know what the meetings are going to be about. And this circles back to our earlier conversation about getting more community members engaged in the messenger service. So if we could do both, I think that would be great.
Okay.
I do know that Mr. Lochner and I believe Ms. O'Connor did announce it at our last board meeting. That was something that they did say. So unfortunately, you know, we are getting more views, you know, on this platform, and I hope that it continues to continues to increase. You know, and we've
Robert,
you know,
so when we go back, right, that when we go back in person, we can also broadcast via, you know.
Yes, no, absolutely. No, I don't disagree at all. But what I'm saying is that unfortunately, even when we put efforts into doing all of these different forms of communication, we do get a limited amount of responses, you know, so it tends to be the same people. You know, so listen, we do everything. So I'm saying to answer yours, Julie, all of the above, you know, send your stuff to Kathy, you know, fill out the surveys so that we can get all of the information that we're looking for. So it's unrestricted, really should be unrestricted.
Thank you. And Mr. Lochner, can we make an announcement about the scope awards and our board recipients and the other staff members that were honored yesterday? I don't know that the community necessarily knows about that either.
Okay.
And I
I
would
can. Were you asking me to make an announcement now, Julie?
Yes.
Okay, I missed. Yeah, no, actually, I'm very happy to do that. We actually we have two board members that were recognized by Scope, and I'm really pleased to announce it. And yesterday we had a wonderful presentation to not just the board members, but we also had some community members. We also had teachers and administrators recognized for their outstanding service to the school community and the community at large. And I also want to say that yesterday it was a beautiful program, and I don't know if I gave enough accolades to the entire cabinet who put it together, this very special presentation, but in particular, Dr. Akil did a tremendous amount of work, and I thought it was really just a beautiful ceremony, and we'll probably continue with that as we move into the future. So I want to thank Dr. Akil in particular for her efforts. But in terms of board members, I'm very happy to say that Mr. Feliciano was recognized. We actually had 2 years because of the last year we weren't able to recognize Mr. Feliciano, but he wanted for a board input, for a board service rather, and Eileen Felix won it for this year. And obviously their efforts speak for themselves. They are tremendous. They give their heart and soul to this Board of Education, as well as the school community. And I think we're successful, and we're certainly better off for all of their efforts. So they were recognized yesterday. They received some beautiful plaques, and I'm very glad you asked to make that public, Julie.
Thank you. Can I also say that the Memorial Day ceremony that we had on Monday was really, really also touching and beautiful. And I would like to give a shout out to Andy Como, who initiated that flag program. If you drive up and down Washington Avenue, you can see the flags with the different soldiers from Brentwood that have lost their lives in combat. So
yes,
just amazing. And thank you, Andy.
Yes, thank you, Andy. And they will be up through the end of June, I think till July 4th that weekend. That's the intention. And if you ever have an opportunity, definitely go north of Suffolk Avenue on Washington Avenue, and it's just beautiful display, and quite a bit of effort to put them up, and also quite a few people who donated because obviously there was a big donation campaign that Andy and a number of other community members, Ellen Edelstein and Cindy Safiri actually was a part of that as well. So a lot of efforts went into that to collect that money.
Thank you.
I have a question in regards to the EPT food cards. I'm not sure when they're coming in regards to each child will be receiving one. And will you make an announcement, I guess, for people to actually look at their mailbox and not throw it out?
You know what? We're going to ask, well, Stacy, you want to take that?
Yeah, I'm not so sure that we're going to know when the state mails it out. Certainly if they tell us, you know, we'll make that announcement, but they didn't tell us last time, you know, last year when it went out. So all we can say is, you know, if you get something, you know, that says what is it? Pandemic EBT card, you know, definitely take that seriously. That's real money on that card that you could spend to get for food.
But we can ask the community right now, if anybody does happen to have one, and obviously the board members as well, is if you get one mailed to us, if you could call us as soon as you have it, then to your point, Maria, we will know here that they've been received, and we'll start publicizing that right away on the website as well as Facebook, because it's a great point. We don't want people, you know, to discard it somehow and not realize that it's actually you know, it's actually a card that has money attached to it. So as soon as somebody knows, whoever's listening or a board member, give us a call and we'll make it public.
Did we make a messenger call to that effect, Rich, about the fact that these cards will be coming out? I know we said it at a prior meeting that the
We
EBD
did
cards
it
were being sent.
initially when it first when they were first
Last year.
going out. If
Last year,
memory
but not
serves.
this year?
Yeah, we
Right.
did it last year.
Yeah, maybe this year, and like you said, Rich, that's a good way to do it once we start receiving it, but we don't want people to miss them before that announcement goes out. So maybe we could send out a preliminary announcement.
Yeah,
So
I'll put out a letter. I'll put out a letter in the next couple of days,
Okay.
Julie. I think we have some time. Did we put out, we did put something out last year, Stacy. We'll have to
Mhm.
take a look at that again.
It's like that stimulus check so many people threw away.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we don't want people to make that mistake. And remember, you do get one per child.
Mhm.
Okay, I think that, so I'll have the last word here on behalf of Ms. Felix and I. Thank you so much, Ms. Lochner, for your kind words, and Dr. Keel for putting all that stuff together.
Yes.
We were the board members who were awarded these plaques and this recognition over the last 2 years, but certainly it could have been any one of the board members and any one of the colleagues on this board.
Absolutely.
So to that point, I want to say that, I had mentioned this to the person who I was sitting next to, Ms. Jerry Odom, who was also one of those people recognized, that it was really, really impressive group of candidates that were up, each one of them for their own strength and their own contribution that day and throughout the years. And it really does take every last one of us to make sure that this community stays on the straight and narrow, and and there are differences of opinion. I mean, I think that you said that yesterday when you were trying to recognize the efforts of this board. There are differences of opinion. There are differences in terms of how we see things and approach things, but I think that we are all better for it. And certainly, I believe that this community is a much better place than it was, even just a short few years ago. So again, thank you to everybody, on behalf of myself, Ms. Felix. But again, it could have been any one of you, and really to everybody else who was recognized yesterday. Really, I was absolutely just proud to be, amongst that particular group. It was very, very impressive. Very impressive.
Very
So,
humbling.
Yep.
Very humbling to receive such a prestigious honor
So,
from our school district. That truly meant a lot. And, without the district behind us, we wouldn't be able to accomplish what we have in such short time, as Mr. Feliciano said. So we thank you.
so with that being said, oh no, thank you.
Congratulations.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Maria.
Happy birthday.
Yeah, no, listen, now I want to say, can we just do a countdown? Can we just do 3, 2, 1, and then maybe we could say, "Happy birthday, Miss O'Connor," and just one of those things.
Where's
So,
the
okay, so
mariachi?
ready? Okay, so
The
here we go.
mariachis are coming.
Mariachi,
Oh,
ready?
here, you didn't hear him?
3, 2, 1. Happy
Happy
birthday!
birthday.
Hey, Ms. O'Connor.
Thank you.
Listen, we've got
How old are you now?
No.
Oh my God.
You won. Are you
Candles
too?
don't fit anymore.
Are you 30?
Yeah, what I want to yell is shot. That's really so. Listen, you got to laugh right along the way. So without further ado, I do want to ask. First, I want to thank everybody for their time. This is part of the work that we're trying to do here. Thank you for volunteering to the board members. It really is. I don't think that people understand. I don't think that we can say this enough. You guys are volunteering your time away from your families, away from your jobs to get all this stuff done. Absolutely, truly appreciate it. So thank you, and thank you to the administration who's here, Ms. Hoey. Thank you very much. Without further ado, I would like to ask for a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
Motion.
Motion by Trustee Felix,
Second.
second by Trustee Burgos. It is 6:41. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstentions, so move. Thank you very much and have a wonderful night. We'll see you next time.
Night.
Have a good
Thank you,
night,
guys. Good
everyone.
night now.
Enjoy,
Take
Stacy.
care.
Thank you. Happy birthday, Stace.
Thanks.
Bye.